Over the past 5 years, the Braves have proven themselves to be a model franchise. They've turned themselves into a perennial playoff team every year since 2018. And although they haven't always had playoff success, they did have that magical run of 2021. Lately, they've drafted well, locked up their good young talent long term, and they look to be strong for at least the next 10 years. But not everything the Braves touch turns to gold. Today, let's look at their worst contracts in recent memory. First, a few honorable mentions. Do you remember Chris Johnson? He was traded along with Justin Upton to the Braves after the 2012 season. In 2013, he was awesome, playing 142 games, hitting .321 and an .816 OPS. The Braves were impressed and extended him for 3 years and $23.5 million. He rewarded the team by dropping his average 58 points, his OPS dropping 163 points, only hitting 10 homers and striking out way more than he did before, his on-base dropping below 300. 2015 wouldn't be any better, his numbers sagging even more, and the Braves had it with him. They sent him to Cleveland for Michael Bourn and Nick Swisher. More recent, Marcell Ozuna. He proved himself to be a star in Miami, went to St. Louis and was pretty good there, then signs a 1-year deal with the Braves in 2020 and he was insane. .338 average, 1067 OPS, and led the National League with 18 homers and 56 RBI, that being in the 60-game COVID season. So naturally, the Braves re-sign him. This time, 4 years, $64 million, and after playing 2 months in 2021, he was arrested and charged with assault and battery against his wife. He was only hitting .213 with a .645 OPS at the time, and he missed the rest of the season. In 2022, he came back and played 124 games, but he wasn't much better, hitting 23 homers but only batting .226 with a .687 OPS. The only reason this is not on the main list is because of 2023. He broke out with 40 homers, 100 RBI, .274 average, and .905 OPS. That helps ease the pain of that contract after 2 wasted years. Another recent one, Eddie Rosario. The Braves traded for him mid-season in 2021, and he went off, raising his OPS from .685 in Cleveland to .903 in Atlanta, and exploding in the playoffs, being named NLCS MVP. The Braves re-signed him for 2 years, $18 million, and he could not recapture the magic. He was horrible to start 2022, but it turns out he had a swollen retina. He had surgery and missed half the season. He only hit .212 with a .587 OPS. 2023 was more of a full season, and he was a perfect league average player. 142 games, 100 OPS plus, 21 homers, .255 average, .755 OPS. This saved the deal a little bit, but still, not a great signing. We also have a couple bad 1-year contracts for pitchers. First, Cole Hamels. He was coming off a full season in Chicago in 2019. 27 starts, 141 2/3 innings, .381 ERA. The Braves signed him for a pretty big price tag, 1 year and $18 million. His shoulder was acting up in spring training, but thanks to the COVID delay, he was able to be on the opening day roster in July. He would only make 1 start with the Braves, giving up 3 runs in 3 1/3, that being in the last 2 weeks of the season. I don't know how much of that $18 million Hamels was actually paid, but if he got more than $1.50 for that performance, it was too much. Also, Bartolo Colon, the ageless wonder. In 2016, he was coming off a 33-start, 191-inning season with the Mets, posting a .343 ERA. Oh, and by the way, he was 43 years old. The Braves signed him for 1 year and $12.5 million. He made 13 starts for the Braves in 2017, going 2-8 and posting an .814 ERA. The Braves DFA'd him in June. The 44-year-old went to the Twins and played 1 more season with the Rangers, dropping his ERA back to the 5s. That stint with the Braves was a lowlight of his career. Let's get into the top 5. Number 5, Mike Hampton. This wasn't really a signing, it was a trade, but when you break it down for how much the Braves owed him for the time on his contract, it was not a good deal. Think of it like the Yankees getting Stanton, adopting that terrible contract from the Marlins. Hampton signed an 8-year, $121 million contract in 2000, selling his soul to pitch at Coors Field, and it went as well as you'd think. He had a bunch of solid seasons for the Astros and Mets in the 90s, finishing second for the Cy Young in 1999, but over his first 2 seasons in Colorado, he had a .575 ERA. The Rockies traded him to the Braves and ate a bunch of that contract. Still, the Braves were on the hook for 6 years and $48.5 million. In 2003, he put in a full season, 31 starts, 190 innings, and he was above average with a .384 ERA. In 2004, it got a little worse. Still mostly a full season, but that ERA went up 46 points. Then, as happens to a lot of 32-year-old pitchers, he started to break down. He started 12 games and went down with a bad elbow, needing Tommy John and missing all of 2006. Then, he tore an oblique muscle in 2007, hurt his elbow again, and suddenly, he was down for a full 2.5 years. In 2008, wouldn't you believe it, he tore a pectoral muscle before his first start, not making his debut until after the All-Star break, 3 full years after his last appearance. He made 13 starts that year, posting a .485 ERA, and that 8-year deal was mercifully over. He made 85 starts in 6 years for the Braves, ending with a .410 ERA. Number 4. Dan Uggla. From the time he broke in with the Marlins in 2006, he proved to be a power bat at second base. His first 5 years in the league, he averaged 31 homers a year and had an .837 OPS. After the 2010 season, the Braves pulled off a trade to get him, and promptly signed him to a 5-year, $62 million deal, $12.4 million a year, a new record for a second baseman. He didn't make a good first impression, hitting 173 into early July, but then, out of nowhere, he runs off a 33-game hitting streak. That lifted him to a halfway decent 2011 season, hitting a career-high 36 homers, but his average dropped 54 points down to 233, and his OPS finished well below 800 for the first time in his career, 764 and a 107 OPS+. This was the last time he would have an above-average season. In 2012, he was named an NL All-Star, but his average dropped even more, down to 220, his OPS dropping another 32 points to 732, and his home run total being nearly cut in half, a career low 19. This was all despite him playing in all but 8 games. He continued his decline in 2013, his average falling well below 200, OPS well below 700, and his defense fell apart also, putting him on thin ice going into 2014. He was only hitting 149 with a 442 OPS when the Braves released him in July, a year and a half still remaining on the contract. Number 3. Derek Lowe. He made his name as a very good closer in Boston, converted to a starter in 2002, posting a .258 ERA that year and finishing 3rd for the Cy Young. His last 2 years in Boston were kinda rocky. Then, he signs with the Dodgers and has 4 great years, averaging 34 starts, 213 innings, and a .359 ERA, and the Braves were impressed. The problem was, when his contract was up at the end of the 2008 season, he was already 35 years old. The Braves still signed him for 4 years and $60 million, $15 million per year, and I will give Derek Lowe one thing. He was durable. Between 2009 and 2011, he put in 33 or 34 starts, never put in a 200-inning season but came close, averaging 192, but he was nowhere near as effective as he had been. His ERA jumped from 324 to 467 in his first year, leading the league in hits allowed with 232, but still winning 15 games. 2010 was better, bringing that ERA down to 4 and winning 16 games, but 2011 was ugly. His ERA peaked over 5, and nobody in the majors lost as many games as Derek Lowe, finishing 9-17. He was an innings eater, but those innings were starting to become like batting practice, and the Braves traded him to Cleveland with 1 year left on his contract. Number 2. Bruce Sutter. Okay, this was a long time ago, and I tried to avoid the old contracts because they weren't for that much money, but this one was still bad. Sutter had a Hall of Fame career, never starting a single game, but ending his 12-year run with 300 saves, winning Cy Young honors in 1979, finishing top 3 2 other times. After 9 seasons in Chicago and St. Louis, he signs with the Braves for the 1985 season, 6 years, $9.1 million. Plus, on top of that, there was an annuity that would pay him $34 million over the next 30 years. The Braves paid for a guy still in his prime at age 31, coming off a 45-save season, 154 ERA, 3rd place for Cy Young. In 1985, that ERA went from 154 to 448, the worst ERA of any year in his career. His shoulder was giving out, and when he came back in 1986, he didn't last very long. He only made 16 appearances, 3 saves, ERA almost as bad at 434, and he was done for the year, having surgery, missing the entire 1987 season, coming back in 1988 but tearing his rotator cuff, only appearing in 38 games and posting an all-time high 476 ERA. The Braves cut him and he would never pitch again, but starting in 1990, he began collecting over $1 million a year. Bruce Sutter passed away in 2022, the same year the Braves finished paying his contract. Number 1. B.J. Upton. In 2013, the Braves brought in the Upton brothers, trading for Justin from Arizona and signing B.J. away from Tampa. This contract being for 5 years, $75.25 million. He had some very flashy moments with the Rays, especially in their 2008 run to the World Series. But overall, he was just above an average player, having an OPS of 758 and OPS plus of 105. Still, he scored a contract making over $15 million a year. Even if they got his production in Tampa, it still wouldn't have been worth it, but he didn't even come close. He played 126 games in 2013, but his average dropped all the way down to 184, his first time hitting under 200. He had a career-high 28 homers in 2012. That was down to 9 in 2013, only knocked in 26, didn't get on base, didn't slug, his OPS finishing at 557 and OPS plus at 55. He put in another full season in 2014, 141 games, and it was a marginal improvement. 12 homers, his average peaking over 200 at 208, and his OPS going up to 620, still with an OPS plus of 75, which is nothing to brag about. He had a negative WAR both years. After those 2 years, the Braves wanted out of this contract. They traded him, along with Craig Kimbrell, to the Padres. Upton being that classic throw-in piece the Padres had to take to acquire the all-star closer. This could have been worse for the Braves, getting out before the contract was halfway done, but they pretty much wasted $30 million on this contract. That's a wrap on the Braves' bad contracts. Let me know which one you think is the worst, and if there's another contract that should have been on this video. Before you leave, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and want to see more content like this, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with other teams' bad contracts. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.